50 kilowatt hour VIVNE pack that he's bought, or battery kit that he's bought. We're going to start on building this into the car tomorrow morning. First job tomorrow morning is going to be to go and get the aircon discharged, because it has the new 1, 2, 3, 4 gas in. I'm not set up for using that because the cost of the equipment and the cost of the gas itself, and there's not that many vehicles that I see that use it yet. So I'm just going to jump inside and get a reading on the battery. We've put him straight on charge when he's got here, and obviously because it's over 24 degrees centigrade, the battery cooling system is working. I think actually it might be 20 centigrade that it battery cooling. So yeah, it's got a 24 kilowatt hour battery in it. Battery cooling system is running while it charges. Temperature gauge isn't too bad because it's been relatively mild today. But yeah, so 94,000 kilometers. Temperature gauge is 2/3 the way up. Obviously when he does the return journey back to his house in Germany, it's going to be a very interesting test on the differences in charging speed and battery temperature at the end of the journey and so on, because these kits are supposed to be much more resilient to heating. Can't actually see it because this is an Evalia and he's got them hidden away in the back of the van. So I will do some more when we got some daylight. So typically this one's got the issue with the clock as well, the built-in clock. I'm not going to do anything about it right now because obviously we're going to be disconnecting the 12 volt while we swap the battery packs over. So once it's all finished, I will go through the routine that I've showed in a separate video here. Probably needs the long routine because it looks like the time is way out on this one. So yeah, I think it's going to be secret menu and long routine, but I'll cover that when I get there. And there's a video that I've done previously which is on file if you want to go and hunt for it. So here we are the following morning. The rain has stopped. Got the car charged up in these cardboard boxes, the cells and everything. So yeah, we're going to set to in a bit. So after a night charging, we've got a full battery in this old one. I'll get some leaf spy figures off it later. Battery is obviously cooled down nicely, not only because it's been charging gently overnight, but also because the built-in cooling system, we're showing 112 kilometers of range. I've got about 30 to do to get to and from the aircon discharge place, so it's going to come down to a nice figure for us to take the battery out, and then it will be ready for us to build the storage system that we're going to build from it. So yeah, looking good this morning. So I've plugged in Leaf Spy into this env200, having charged it overnight. It's only showing something like 16.5 kilowatt hours, which must have made the journey here quite interesting, but it gives us a baseline figure against which we can see the improvements after we've finished with the 50 kilowatt hour upgrade. So here we go. These are the boxes that the battery kit comes in. Obviously when it's delivered, it's on a pallet for easier handling, but it got broken down to be put into the back of the van to come here to me. So we're going to get these out and have a look and see what we've got inside. We're actually going to build the battery into one of the spare cases that I have sat there, which gives us the option to make sure that we've got the battery functioning before we disable this vehicle. It also gives us more room in the workshop, but that's just an aside. So yeah, on we go. So here are the battery boxes. They're all lettered. The tops are actually screwed on with these fantastically strong corner and center braces. So we're going to take the tops off before lining the boxes up across the back of the workshop here in letter order, and then we'll open them up and see what we've got. So now we've got all the brackets off the tops, we've got the cling film off. Take the top off, and again it's beautifully packaged inside. So we've got the BMS inside here, which is why we started with this one. I'm not going to bore you with the unpacking, but you can see how much effort goes into packing it beautifully for transit. So here's the BMS that I actually sent to China for the customer so that they could program this and then send it back with his kit. And there's a bit of confirmed proof there because I wrote on the back whose it was and where it's coming from. So all is good. We're making great progress. So I get more impressed the further we go. There's even lifting ropes in the battery box. This one has module D in it, and as they've shown on their videos, all the connections are labeled as well. We've got some brackets and stuff in here, so we'll carry on unpacking, but it's going very, very nicely. So yeah, we finished on the first box. There's a packing list in each box to make sure we know we've got everything, and we have. This is the OBD2 battery with plug kit. So yeah, everything's in here. We're moving on to the next one, obviously C. Yep. So here we go. All 4 boxes unpacked. Everything correct and present as per the packing lists. So we're just going to clean away the excess packing, which I have to say is a fantastic amount. So everything is really securely packaged. Well impressed. So we're going to clear this away into some recycling bags, and the lids will presumably go for recycling, and also the boxes when we're finished building up the new pack. So as a part of building this VIVNE kit into the used env200 pack that I've got, we're just cleaning up the old pack, getting the old glue off and so on, and then we'll give it a whiz with the grinder to get the worst off, and then give it a lick of paint. We're going to do the same to this one. I'm going to take out from here all the bits that are left over from stripping out the modules, which we're not going to need, like the mounting plates for the modules and the BMS brackets and wiring and all the nuts and bolts, which I've put in pots in case anyone wanted to buy the assembly. I do generally have complete packs just without cells in for anyone that's interested in doing it this way, and I also have loose BMSs available that you can have sent to China, obviously with a securing deposit and the cost of the postage. We can send that to China so that they can pre-program it before you have to dismantle your battery pack in your car, and then it comes back with the battery kit as this one did, and then when you get your kit you're ready to go for a build. Clearly if you buy an empty battery casing too, you can build it before you disable your car. Different strokes for different folks. So yeah, it's very noisy, but we're just finishing up cleaning up the mating faces on the battery pack. You can see here where this one's already underway, the lid's already done. We're going to put a lick of zinc spray onto this to make it look good, stop it from rusting, and then when it all goes back together it's going to be nice and pretty. We've got to that stage now, so the PDF that gets sent with the battery order I've now printed out. It's 24 pages, which is quite lengthy. I have read through it beforehand, so I know what's in there, but having a hard copy here to hand is very good while we're building, and because there's 2 of us going to be working together to actually build this one as the customer is here, printing it out makes a lot of sense. Very detailed, very accurate, different instructions for different models, which obviously adds to the confidence of the quality of the kit. So we just started to go through the instructions on the build already, which is nice. There's a little bit of ambiguity in the wording on there. So what we've got is we've got another phone here with VIVNE's own video on it, which is ironing out the lack of understanding that we have due to the ambiguity. So it's about placing the BMS bracket and the mounting bracket first of all. So that's already on there. We're going to lift the module out of the box and we can do the BMS mounting bracket, but we have the video for reference as well as the PDF copy, so there's going to be no issues.
Which is amazing.
Okay, so it says to mount the BMS brackets to the module C, but there's a little bit of movement in the brackets. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to loosely bolt the BMS into the brackets, and then we know that when we do up the mounting brackets, because there's not going to be room to do them up afterwards, we know that when we do them up, everything's going to be lined up properly.
This is something they stuck in afterwards.
Yes, which is good because it shows that it's not a standard.
Not the original.
Because without that, you'd never know. Again, showing the quality of what they do. They've put a sticker on to show that they've reflashed this one for an env200 with cooling. They've put the date of the reflash on it as well, so that it's all good for the future. Right, so we've got the BMS brackets on, and we've only done these up finger tight just to make sure that they're all in the right place for when the BMS finally goes on. But that's going to be one of the very last bits, so I'm going to whip that back off quickly and we can put the first module into the battery. Big step. So here's the thing, it was a little bit difficult to line this up and get the straps back out afterwards, but we managed. And then when we went to settle it down, the bracket here that holds the end bracket on the standard battery was getting in the way slightly, so we need to give it a good tug in that direction to get it to sit down. And now we can see that the metal mounting plates are all sat down nicely, so we can run some securing bolts in, and that's the first module in place already. So in the bags of fittings that came with module C, we've got M6x40 and M6x20 screws and washers. Obviously the M6x20 go in the front here because there's less bolt holes, as we have to have these mounting pillars for the next module that's going on top. And then the M6x40 go in the back here, and obviously we need to get them all started first, make sure they're all running in before we nip them up. So now that we're comfortable that we've got all the relevant bolts we're going to need, we have to, as the instruction says, or doesn't say, put in module D as well, which sits on top of this one. And then these longer bolts, A, the front three, and B, the whole lot across the back, can all go in at once to hold module D securely on top of module C. So there we go, both of the rear modules in position. We're just going to do up all the nuts by hand and then make sure they're all properly torqued, and then we can keep going. So here we go, it says to install modules B and A and then bolt the whole lot down in one go. So there's B already in. We're just going to go for A. We've got all the rest of the stuff out of the way. So here we go. So we found another little anomaly. There's a bag with 14 M6 flange nuts in it, but the bolts that hold down modules A and B, both inside and outside, are M8. Clearly I have a set of 14 from when I've taken out the standard modules. But yeah, just a little thing to watch out for. Right, so we've actually got VIVNE's video here. It's gone on pause, but that's no problem. It's showing you that we've got VIVNE's video here, and it actually makes a very good reference because laying out some of the cables isn't the world's simplest. But we've got to the stage where we've done the sensor wiring that goes to these A and B modules. We've got the temperature wiring in, but we haven't done it up, so we're leaving the 10mm socket there, all ready to go. You can see here there's a temperature sensor on here. There's a temperature sensor down there. There's one here, and there's one over on module B here. We're going to do those up in a minute once we're sure that we've got all the cable runs nice and tidy, and then we're going to be able to untape all of these as well. But yeah, the video is a very useful backup to the manual instructions, so I'd advise you to have it ready to play whenever you need it. So here we go, all the modules fitted, the center cooling bar fitted, all the bus bars and HT cabling and everything all fitted exactly as per the VIVNE video. So yeah, if you need to have the intricate details on fitting these bits, obviously refer to their video. So we've got a 12-volt power supply to the OBD2 tester. The interlock is in. We're going to see what we've got on Leaf Spy. So here we are, opening up Leaf Spy. I've got it set for BMS only. And there we go. I did actually set it for 60 to 62 battery, but because this one's a 50, Leaf Spy's actually set itself back down to 40 kilowatt hours. But as you see, 100% state of health at HX at 97.66. So that all looks good. Average voltage at 3.6 and state of charge at 44%. That all tallies. Obviously we're at ambient temperature. That's really about it. We've got a nice set of blue bars, so the battery's just sitting there waiting for us to put the cover on and mount it into the vehicle. All good. Okay, so in the VIVNE video, they show whacking these retaining studs with a hammer. I'm much happier with a deep 8mm socket and a little extension bar, and then you can just bend them into shape, which to me is a much nicer thing than whacking them with a hammer. I'd rather not have a hammer around a battery anyway, so all good. So we've got all the bolts bent up into what I hope is the correct position. Just to make sure, we're going to go for a dry fit on the lid, just to make sure it goes through all the holes in the lid nice and easily. You can see here these faces that we cleaned up with the grinding wheels and so on to get the old silicone off. It's the same on the battery lid. We cleaned the mating face up and then painted them all with zinc spray so there's no more corrosion. So yeah, perfect for a dry fit, and then we'll put the seal on once we're happy that it all works well. So we've done a dry fit on this wide seal that they send with the kit, because the battery pack needs the lid to be fitted slightly higher. We're now running a bead of silicone all the way around the outside so that we can glue the rubber bead thingy, whatever you want to call it, to the casing, and we'll drop the lid on overnight while it all dries. We're going to tape the rubber wadgy thing, whatever you want to call it, into position to make sure it doesn't move, and then we'll just drop the lid onto it and then make sure it all sets nicely, and then we're ready to whip it back off, cable tie the cables up, and do a final close up on the lid. So there we go. We used some masking tape to hold the seal in position while we dropped the lid on. We've actually kind of tightened it up a little bit just so that it holds the seal in position overnight while the seal sets. And then tomorrow we can whip the lid back off and get this boxed up and finished. So for fitting the battery into the env200, it's very, very similar to the Nissan Leaf. There's a few detail differences, but as always, we start with taking the negative terminal off the battery. That needs just a 10mm socket. The biggest difference is the cutoff for the battery, the main cutoff, which is actually underneath this part of the center console, which has a couple of screws holding it down and lifts up, and then there's a metal covering plate that we can pull up and get to the battery cutoff to withdraw it and then make it safe before we start to pull the connections off. So there's a plastic cover over the front retaining bolt here. This just needs to be pulled up, unclipped, and then there's a couple of teeth that secure it across the front, and then as you can see inside we've got a 10mm nut which will whiz out, and then this should lift out, exposing the the metal cover, safety cover for the cutoff. The cover itself has a couple of the usual press down clips at the back here. You can see them inside the cover there. They just need to be unclipped when you lift it up. And here you can see we've got the 3 bolts. The third one is hiding here underneath the carpet. There we go. So we just need to pop those out. We can get this cover off and then get access to the battery cutoff. So here's the battery cutoff. It's not the world's easiest to get to, but without the plate and everything, that's all good.
In it anyway, right?
So that will come out and then we're ready to drop it down. So there we go. The cutoff is out. I leave it up here, and then when we slide the other battery back up, I've got it to hand so that it's nice and easy to just drop back in. Interestingly, the crash data box is right here. I'm going to just move some stuff around a bit because I'm interested to see if it uses the same number as the Leaf, because this one is much easier to change on this than it is on a Leaf. And as I discovered, if you do happen to need another one after an accident, they're entirely plug and play, so very straightforward. So the seal has glued down very nicely with the tape and bolting the lid down onto it, so that's all good. We're just going through and cable tying the loose cables and so on, make sure it's all nice and tidy, and then I'm actually going to use my preferred waterproof, weatherproof seal on top of their rubber gasket, so it'll go on here all the way around, so it doesn't actually glue the lid down, just in case there's any reason in the near or far future to be taking the top off the battery. It saves messing about with ungluing everything. We have had a small concern with the rubber seal on the cutoff here lifting up all the time, so we've popped a bit of glue on there as well, and we'll glue it down, make sure it's held tight before we refit the lid. So here we go with the battery removal. I've dropped down the under trays. Need to be a little bit careful at the front on these because there's a bolt right here behind the rear wheel arch liner which needs to come out to get the front under tray down, so you need to make sure that your jack doesn't get in the way, which mine did this morning, so I had to just drop it down and move it. So now I'm going to do the aircon pipes and the 2 high voltage connectors and the low voltage connector, and then we're ready to take the big bolts out. As usual, I've sprayed them with Rostoff anti-rust spray to try and improve my chances of getting them out nice and cleanly and quickly, so away we go. So on this build we're actually putting the expanding foam tape onto the lid of the battery because it's easier to see the lineup of where it should go than it is on the big rubber spacer that comes with the VIVNE kit. The beauty with this stuff is that it's windproof and waterproof, and if the lid ever needs to come back off again, there's no glue or anything to be cutting. It's literally just a case of undo the bolts and the lid comes off, and then when you need to refit it, the same tape will just close the gap up afterwards. So the connector layout on the env200 is different to the Leaf as well. So we've got the main power one here angled off to one side, then the PTC one's in the middle, but the CAN connector is exactly the same. And then on the models that are thus equipped, the only other thing to do is to disconnect the aircon lines here. Once this multi-block is pulled away from the battery, we need to just cover the ends. I put a plastic bag over them to make sure no dirt or dust or anything goes into the pipes while we're doing the battery swap. I've already been around all the big bolts with a power bar to make sure they're all going to come undone. So we're just going to do this aircon pipe, get it tucked out the way and protected, and then we're ready to put the battery lift underneath the battery and lower the battery down. So there we go. I use a plastic bag cable tied onto the pipes, and then just to make sure we don't snag them while we're dropping the battery out, I use another cable tie just to hold them all out of the way. They've got these flexi sections on them so they take that easily. So there we are, we're ready to put the trolley in underneath the battery, take out all the retaining bolts and drop them down. Here we've got the battery lined up by lowering the car onto the battery while it's on the ramp. You can see that we've got the VIVNE supplied spacers with the longer bolts already started, all 8 of them started, so that we know we've got the battery alignment good. Making sure that all the spacers are there, all the bolts are good. We've put some copper slip onto the bolts, as I always do, to make sure that if ever it has to come out again, it's not as resistant as it was this morning. So yeah, all we've got to do is zip these up tight. We can redo the electrical connections, put the breaker in, reconnect the 12 volt, and we're ready to go live in the car. So the battery's all bolted in. You can see the spacers at the back here as well. The extra earth strips that Nissan fitted on these, as well as on some Leafs, have fitted back nicely as well. So next job I'm going to do is just to refit the air conditioning connector into the front of the battery here. While this battery was outside being built, I had rubber bungs in there, but obviously we've taken them off. The same with the weather protectors for the connectors. So I've taken all of those things off, so we're ready to just refit the aircon connector, refit the high voltage, refit the low voltage, and we're good to go for a start once the 12 volt is connected. So here we are. Here's the first startup. Battery's fitted. We did see about 44% charge when we used Leaf Spy yesterday, so this is looking good. Going to just dive into Leaf Spy and deal with the battery pairing. I'll do a screen recording on that right now so you see how it goes. That will then get rid of the yellow car warning light and the turtle symbol, and then we'll just make sure the charging functions, and we're ready to put all the under trays back on. So the van is now out of the workshop with its new VIVNE battery pack built and installed. I've finished refitting the interior trims here over the master cutoff. I've greased the catches on the bonnet and the charger port just to make sure. Changed the diff oil, and now I suspect we're going to have to look at the clock because it's one of these ones and we know what the problems are. So let's fire it up. Yeah, it thinks it's the 5th of September 2008. Now I have elsewhere on my YouTube, and I'll try to remember to link it in the description. If I forget, just leave me a message in the comments. There's a fairly lengthy way that you can get into the secret memory on the center screen here, but I've already covered it on a video, so I'm not going to embarrass you by making you watch it all over again. But you can basically set it to today's date again, and then when you've done that, even if it resets the date, it sets it to a date where the days of the week and the day of the month all tally, so all the timers will come back. But it's more self-explanatory in the video. I'm going to crack on and do this one. So we've finished on the battery upgrade in the env200. We're going to build this home kit that VIVNE also do, which will take all of the old cells to build a home storage unit for the customer's solar generation. So this is how they're delivered on top of the pallets with all the cells and modules in that came for the env200. These two were on top. We've unboxed this one already, but we'll crack on and we'll show you what we've got. So there's a spectacular amount of packaging, and I mean that genuinely, because everything is individually cling film wrapped, so there's absolutely no damage to anything when it arrives. So we're halfway through unboxing. We've nearly finished unboxing and unwrapping the first box, and then we'll go on to the second once we've got everything laid out. We've already watched their video on the assembly, so once we've got everything laid out, we're going to crack on. So here we are in the env200 with the VIVNE 50 kilowatt hour battery pack. Just done the first full charge overnight, and we're showing 277 kilometers of range, which can't be bad. I'm going to just show you what we're showing on LeafSpy too. Here's the LeafSpy live on this battery pack. Obviously it's showing 0 kilometers since the last charge, showing 45.7 kilowatt hours usable. State of charge is at 97.2%, but the GIDs are at 118%, which actually reflects the fact that it's a 50 kilowatt hour pack. But LeafSpy, when I set it to a 60 to 62, it defaults back to a 40, so that it can see that it's got more energy than it's expecting. So that's all good. That screen's not telling us a great deal. Obviously the temperature is very much the ambient temperature. We're just off to get the aircon recharged for the drive back to southwest Germany, where the cars come from. And obviously with the built-in cooling system on these, they do stay quite nice and cool, even with repeated charges. Again, looking at the state of health and the HX, all brilliant. We're showing obviously 0 quick charges, 7 L1 L2s, because we've been plugging it in and testing it continuously since it went in. So all looking excellent. Very impressed. So we're back from getting the aircon recharged, best part of 30 kilometers to and fro. Rather pleasingly, the range has actually increased from when we set up, so we're now still showing 285 kilometers of remaining range, even though we've already covered 30 kilometers this morning. So it's settling in really beautifully. Liking this.
At 15.
So we've now gone for an absolutely full charge on this one after just having it ready to go for aircon this morning. We're now up to potentially over 300 kilometers of range, which is a massive difference from the degraded 24 that came out of it. So all is well.